Teachers of Reddit, what is your "this student is so smart it's scary" story? I taught high school math. One of my freshman students divided 1134 by 63 in his head in less than a second. I let him finish the problem, and then after he arrived at his answer, I asked him, "How did you do that?" He looked at me with this blank stare, as if he was thinking, "You can't do that." He proceeded to say, "Well, I doubled 63 and then multiplied that by 10, and then I saw that 1134 was just the difference of those two numbers, so 18. Looked at me like it was nothing. I told him good work and moved on. I'm only above average at a few things, but one of them is mental math. When I saw that this kid could do this calculation that I couldn't, I was so happy. It was one of my happiest moments as a teacher. I didn't help him in that moment, but to know I played a small part in his math education felt so good. Well, I doubled 63 and then multiplied that by 10, and then I saw that 1134 was just the difference of those two numbers, so 18. I feel so stupid because I can't even wrap my head around the explanation. I teach kids with autism that learn on the alternate curriculum, usually lower level academics, and have cognitive delays. I'm always amazed that, while they might struggle in one area, the strengths they have. I had one girl who knew everyone's birthday, everyone she met, day, month, year and age. She could also do crazy math in her head. I have another kid who is minimally verbal, but knows every locker combination in the school. Two others who are amazing artists. Another who could tell you what 80s movie icon shared a birthday with you. I love my kids. I was doing a 500-piece puzzle with some kids. I was a preschool teacher. We finished the puzzle, except for one piece, which was nowhere to be found. Kid comes in, takes one look at the puzzle on the table, says, "Oh, are you missing that? I know where it is." Reaches into another completely different 500-piece puzzle, rummages for like 10 seconds, pulls the piece out, fits it in. I ask him how he knew it was there. He said he had done the other puzzle for a bit and noticed it. I asked him how long ago. "Christmas," he says. It was February at the time. Kid was maybe 5 at the time. Might be more memory than intelligence, but that was crazy to see. Such a great kid, in somewhat dire circumstance. I hope he's gotten all the opportunities he deserved. 5-year-old memory is the best memory. I'm at the point where, if I forget something in class, where I put my keys, what page we were on yesterday, what color James colored his duck, I just ask them. They always know. I have a student who is an immigrant that speaks fluent English. I assumed that she grew up in the USA. She told me she had been here for a year and knew zero English before coming. I was amazed. I have another student who just does calculations instantly in his head. He doesn't have to think. When he learns more math, it just becomes automatic. He explained that numbers just make sense. The English thing is surprisingly easy, as long as you take the right approach. I came to the US in the same situation as a 12-year-old. I just kept rewatching movies and series I had seen in my original language, and was fluent 2 years later. Had a classmate in my American government class in a community college about 9/10 years ago. Our teacher gives 3 questions for you to pick one of them to write about for the test in essay format. You get the question about a week or so to prepare you to study your subject question. Most people write an average of 5 to 8 pages during the test. This guy writes around 20 pages, give or take. Even the teacher was dumbfounded. He did this for every test, and this is a 3-term class. You don't have to take all terms, or even take it order, if you happen to do all 3. Yes, he got A's. He wanted to get into politics. I heard of overachievers, but WTF. Who does that? Worked at a special purpose preschool designed for kids on the autism spectrum. Did an intake day with a kiddo, 4Y/O, where I was just trying to have fun and see what kind of things he liked. Did some time on the computer where we surfed around YouTube a bit. He searched up a video about our solar system and began to explain to me the difference between the inner solar system and the outer solar system, what they are made of, sizes, electromagnetic fields to compensate for distance from the sun, etc. I had to Google everything he was saying because I had no idea if it was true. Spoiler alert. It was. My 7-year-old son is on the autism spectrum, and this is him with weather and sports. I stopped questioning him because he was right and I wasn't. For Christmas we bought him a bunch of books on weather and climate. By New Year's he had memorized them all. Yet we can't get him to sew his math homework. I once had a pre-kindergartner who could read and cried because he was so upset with how dumb the rest of the kids were. My mom would write little notes for preschool me and stick them in my lunchbox. My teacher noticed I could read them and would have me read them to the class every day after that. I cried, but from embarrassment lol. Since I'm not a teacher either, my mom was a very average student, didn't try very hard, and was not planning to go to college. Back when she was in school, they used to administer IQ tests. A couple of months after she takes an IQ test, the school calls my grandparents and says we need to talk about your daughter. Everyone is like, oh lord, what did she do now? They both go to the school and the principal sits them down. Your daughter has an IQ of 140, but she's failing algebra. We think you should send her to a psychiatrist. My grandfather was livid. He took off work for this. No, she never saw a psychiatrist. And she didn't go to college. But she's pretty smart. IQ doesn't exactly measure how smart you are, but your capacity to learn. I work with 18 to 24-month-olds and we have an 18-month-old who can have literal conversations. Perfect sentence structures, perfect verb conjugation, perfect pronunciation, even L and R. Knows all the alphabets, numbers, colors, shapes, by sight. Some of the others know some of those things, but I've never seen a baby this advanced. I sometimes forget she's only 1 year old, because she seems more like 3.5. Just tiny like a 1-year-old. Her dad brought her back from a well baby checkup telling us that the doctor asked, does she say any words yet? And we all lolled cause she has full conversations. My son spoke in full sentences by 18 months, reading by 2.5, could add, subtract and multiply etc. before preschool. He's now 21, unemployed and spends all day playing games online, still smart as though, just lazy. I have a 5-year-old this year who has stolen my wallet more times than I'd like to admit, from my pocket, without me knowing. I now wear a wallet chain, like I don't remember what decade it is. He still tries, but he hasn't figured out a workaround yet. Nah man, he's even smarter than that. Now that he's trained you to be obsessed with the wallet, and you think that's all he cares about too, he's in the clear to start stealing other things. Check your desk. One of my kindergarteners just knows multiplication, and not just the basic 5s or 10s. In the beginning, when his parents told me, I played along with 2x2 or 10x10, but you can tell him 17x14, and he knows it instantly. So cool to watch. Former school aide here. I once had a very tiny lad surprise me. For typical development would be learning basic alphabet recognition and first sounds towards word forming. However, he took some play clay and made a and pan plan plane planet planets across the table and wandered off again. We had a 4-year-old in preschool. He was sitting under the table writing down numbers for a long time. He had no time to talk to us. When he came out and we looked at what he had been doing, he said he wrote down all the multiplications. It turns out his brother in 5th grade was learning the multiplication table, and this little brother really wanted to do the same, but did not have a multiplication table. He counted on his fingers to add each column, and got the table right. A few days later he knew multiplication. He would also comment on dates. If someone told they had their birthday on June 12th, he would say, that is in 184 days almost immediately. On an excursion we passed some statues with birth and death dates, and he would casually sum up. He was 78 years, and 110 days old. She was born 33 years, and 120 days before him, etc. I think he was maybe more focused, and willing to understand, than necessarily so smart. If he was right about the days, that's definitely very smart for a 4-year-old. I'm 26 and can't even do that. Had a first grader figure out exponents on his own. That's just the way he was raised. Not a teacher, but had a classmate who was, and still is, a genius. I distinctly remember him asking very complex questions on the current reading literature, and making constructive arguments. It was over my head, but our teacher was offended and argued back, that he didn't understand anything and or an overachiever. I think they were over her head as well. She screamed at him and stormed out of class a number of times. There was a time she asked him to leave as well. I never felt so bad for a classmate. He didn't deserve to be yelled at like that. I believe he's now a mathematician with published works and awards as well as a successful musician. Not a teacher, but a proud big brother. My baby sister was 5 when I came home from college for the summer after actually figuring out calculus. And I explained it to her. And she wrote it down in her journal. Yes, she kept one from the time she was about 4. Fast forward after she skipped a few grades in elementary school, and she was taking calculus in high school, and could not understand why it was so easy, and reread her journal, figured it out, and called me, laughing. She has a PhD in high energy physics, and does research at CERN. Yeah, that stuff. Desperately proud of her. You did her one of the best kindnesses you could have made happen. Early stimulation of the brain really can have a kid go places later. A kid's work kept deleting itself on a computer every few minutes. He was having a meltdown, and I saw it happen. It was impossible to explain the phantom deleting that was going on. Fast forward to the end of the class, and there's one kid remaining that was sitting at the opposite computer from the kid who lost all his work. He looks at me and says, "You wanna know how I did, sir?" He had put in a USB keyboard into the back of the computer and had it set up so he could hit the delete key with his big toe. It was the funniest stealth attack I'd seen in a long time. Being the teacher, I should have done something, but it was too funny and smart. My friend took the act when we were in 7th grade and got a 31. I don't know how, because they don't teach you half of that material until high school. Hell of a guy though. Would intentionally get questions wrong on really difficult tests so he wouldn't kill the curve for the rest of us. Wish the smart dudes in my classes were like that. I had a first grader with a speech impediment who was asking for a type of book. His peers and I couldn't understand him, no matter how hard we tried. Finally, he gave up, and without any frustration, he found a picture book with someone stirring a pot on the cover. He opened the book and skimmed through words until he found what he was looking for, the word cooking. He showed me the book and pointed, telling me that was the word he had been trying to say. He wanted a cookbook. This was a 6-year-old. 6. Dang. Kids can be freaky when they memorize specific stuff, but that kind of thinking is incredibly intelligent. I had a student ask for an extension on their paper because they were representing our nation in the World Science Festival. They came in 3rd, and the paper was an A+. Now I don't have an excuse to keep putting off my research revisions. I'm a piano teacher on the side, teaching a 4-year-old how to read sheet music before she can read books. I ask her to find the season she will point then out on the page ECT. She can also do math really well and understands the concept of multiplication. Also another student that just started and plays by ear and composes her own pieces at 8. She also speaks 5 languages, which I didn't find out until I told her I was learning German. After teaching her for 3 months, she's already to the point where I had to send her to a better teacher. Kudos to you for recognizing that she needs a better teacher. Not many teachers do. Have an upvote. My mother told me a story once of a kid she went to high school with. This kid was the local stoner, but incredibly smart. He was talking college courses way before everyone else, saying they ran out of math for me, dog. Kid took the fat highlighters, cut them open, and removed the insides, and replaced it with weed. Sold them at school. He was caught, but only because a kid snitched after they were caught getting high. Absolutely brilliant. Highlighters, it's right there in the name. My mom was a student teacher in the early 1970s. She recounts the story of a gifted first grader that nobody really knew how to handle. Every day her mentor would give the child a copy of the New York Times and let him read during her class. Much later, my mom was working as a speech therapist and had a severely autistic child that would come in daily. After their lessons, he would spend his free time drawing elaborate and accurate city maps on the whiteboard. It was fascinating. I had a kid who could take one look at a national flag and then point to the corresponding country on an unlabeled world map instantly. Nah, I think that kid spent too many hours playing grand strategy games. There was once a kid in the grade above me in middle school that hacked the school database and deleted everyone's grades. He was expelled. When I was in 6th grade, a kid took down the school internet using a school administered laptop. Not a teacher, but a kid in my grade ended up taking courses 2 years ahead of the rest of us advanced kids. The funny part was that he skipped his own mother's class and wrote novels during middle school math. He's published 3 books and currently has over 95% in every class. I'm not a teacher, I'm a student, but one of my classmates just has so much random memorized. Ask him about anything, like the Crimean War, how to build a combustion engine, random useful bits of information about bands from the 70s, as well as being an excellent student in every single subject. He's also managed to teach himself Cyrillics, or whatever that Russian alphabet thing is, and can speak Russian pretty well, despite never having taken a class of it in his life. IDK, it's just nuts he's so good at so many random things.